Good evening, everybody, and welcome to TRUtalk. I'm GamerDad, and I'm joined with GrindheadJim and DanKurome. So tonight, we're going to be talking about Fallout 76. It releases tomorrow, but we're already playing it today. We've got a couple being ordered by Nintendo to pay a large amount of money back for running illegal ROM sites, and some news on senators asking for an FTC investigation for something going on with some ads in your kids' applications on their mobile devices. And yeah, that's the most interesting one to me. But Stan Lee, there is a DLC you can download for the Amazing Spider-Man to play a mission with Stan Lee playing as Spider-Man. So that's pretty cool, given the sad news of his passing. And we've been asking for it. Not really. PUBG's coming to PS4 in December. We're all not very excited. And all that's coming up on TRUtalk. So let's get into it. All right, so it's been talked about. It's an exciting time. It's Destiny 2 reset day.
I see what you did there.
I had to throw it in.
Because to be honest, the regular Destiny 2 reset day is way more exciting than what I've seen from Fallout 76 reviews.
Yeah.
Sorry, called it. No one cares.
So Fallout 6 goes live tomorrow, but whether it was intentional or not, Bethesda may or may not have turned on their servers a day early. And so little bit of comment there when we get into that. But before that, we've got a couple in a little bit of trouble with Nintendo in the way of $12 million for running illegal ROM sites.
$12 million is a little bit of trouble.
A little bit of trouble. The sarcasm is just, the meter is we're taking it way up here.
Yeah,
tiny bit.
So lots of news. Jim, what do you have for us?
Well, basically, other than a lot of remorse for the ROM hacks, there's in the U.S. here, the Senate's calling for an investigation from the Federal Trade Commission into advertisements that go into children's applications, much in the same way there was some concern about advertisements for children's programming in television in the 70s and 80s. So there's a cool parallel there that we'll get into. I think it's cool. And then there, because of Stan Lee's passing, there became this resurgence of this DLC where you actually were him in a Spider-Man game. Not the most recent one, from about 6 years ago. I just thought it was a cool kind of thing. And really, it's just an excuse to talk about Stan Lee. So, spoilers. We're going to be talking about that. And, of course, PUBG is coming to PS4 in December, as if anyone expected it to not. Which doesn't matter because you can get it for free on the Xbox now as well. So if you're a console player and you have both, just go to your Xbox and get it for free and not play it, because Fortnite is it's better. It's just better. Sorry, it actually functions as a game and therefore it is superior.
There's so much to talk about that, and none of it has to do with PUBG.
Nah, but speaking of superiority, we have an amazing guest this week. The
transitions are fantastic.
Hey, I got to do something right with this non-scripted stuff.
This is what happens when you're documentless. Just the ad-libbing goes insane.
It's like that with the script too, so they won't be able to tell.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, here's a little behind the scenes. Before Dan gets to tell us about himself, the behind the scenes is, from the first podcast, I had this document that I would write up with the intro, including scripting this entire part. Not just like bullet points of, here's the article, scripting out the stuff we would say. And it just sounded awful because there were cool things. The comments were pretty cool, except now you're reading them and you sound like a robot. And then it got to...
You sound like a robot. I'm full bionic, man. I'm good to go.
Someone say synth to go along with the Fallout theme. Yeah. Anyway, and I would take away more and more of the script. And then today I'm just like, all right, you sent the articles. We have the articles up. We're going for it.
That's all that matters.
Yeah, with no warning either. You know, we're actually live. You're like, oh, by the way, there's no script. I'm like, oh, thanks, man. Appreciate that. Which, you know, the thing is, though, that really the whole, what we call the script, really is just like the structure of the intro, the structure of what article's going to go what, the links, and then like a couple things on the out. Like the 95% of what we say is unscripted. I think this was an exercise in can we wing it? I'd have been a lot more prepared to wing it if I'd have known we were winging it.
Well, in this case,
Until I showed
GamerDad
up.
got stuck late at work, had to leave work to go pick up his daughter because Hypermom was stuck at work. And I've had.
I get it. I'm not mad at you. I'm just saying.
This is the truest of True Talk tonight, is what it really is.
The most
The
raw.
truest of truth. Just, Your Honor, objection. I object.
So, you have this wonderful guest here that you're introducing before I rudely interrupt.
No, I was. You go ahead now. No, you're good.
So, we have our buddy.
It's not scripted anyway.
No, we have our buddy Dan here, and we go through 3 questions to let you get to know our true affiliate. So he's a member of the affiliate program with TRUgaming, and so the first question is, Dan, what got you into streaming? What got you started? Why are you streaming?
Oof. It's a fairly easy question, to be honest. So I started doing Final Fantasy 14 raiding with a group of friends, and it was a lot of fun. Like, we'd make jokes with each other, we'd make jokes about each other, and I just thought, you know what, one day I'm gonna just hit start stream on OBS and see what happens. And on my first stream, I had about 3 or 4 people come in and just say, "This is really cool. Like, I'm not the best player in the world," so they came for the banter. And it was really fun to interact with the people in the chat, as well as trying to beat a boss that we were learning at the same time as well, because we were all gaining the experience together. So regardless of the fact that there were 8 of us failing to the same mechanic about 400 times, we also had people with us who were laughing at us and with us. And from there, it just kind of snowballed, really.
I gotta tell you, that's a hard game to stream. It is
MMOs in general are,
because you're so focused on the raid.
Yeah.
I watch raids. I don't even recommend it. I mean, a lot of streamers pull it off, but if there's any teaching being done, or there's, unless it's a team that does the same thing over and over again, that's a really challenging thing to do. For you, with that being your first foray into streaming, do you think maybe you have a different way of looking at rating while streaming than the average player or streamer does, or is that just something that kind of came naturally to you?
Yeah, definitely. When I got conscious about the people who were watching me stream the raids, people would say I'm noticeably more chatty. I'm noticeably more active, mostly because while I'm trying to entertain myself and the group so we don't get bored on one boss, I'm also trying to entertain these people who have no idea who we are, have never spoken to us or interacted with us in any capacity. And also, when I was younger, I wanted to be an actor. So I just naturally grew into a role where I wanted to initially be in the spotlight, but then also just have a sense of how to entertain at the same time. Whether it's going well, I don't know. You can ask the people who watch my streams at the moment. But I think it's going okay.
Well, it's like I have a core group of people that when they see me that I'm raiding in Destiny, they just turn the other way. I have a tendency to get really focused and I get snippy. I'm like, God damn it! And just throw the mic. I'm like, come on, you guys can do this. Shut up.
I do have to be honest. The raids have gotten a little bit harder this expansion. So if I have been streaming, it's been less and less the Final Fantasy stuff because we've been making less progress than we used to. So even I'm acknowledging that when I'm streaming it, it's not fun to even watch or do at the same time. So
I feel like when it's difficult content, you almost have to structure it around the teaching aspect with a lot of heavy caveats and so forth. But
just don't do jump puzzles with Jim on stream.
Ooh.
Those were, and
It's like-
that is no knock on Jim. Those were brutal jump puzzles, and watching everybody else. I mean, Jim's like, all right, got it, jump, 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 and then you hear two other people like, you're supposed to do it this way, and they're yelling at each other back and forth, and Jim's just like, come on, guys.
Yeah,
Isn't that the one where I had to leave because the family got home, and then I come to find out later that they actually got glitched to where they weren't able to complete the jump
Yeah.
because it glitched out?
I
Is
think
that the
so.
one you're talking about?
I think so. It's the
was
one where the
crazy.
floors fell out and you had to split directions. Yeah, was it Is that?
Yeah, they
was
actually.
It? Oh,
Yeah, they actually got through except for one person, and then the actual exit of that area glitched. They couldn't even get the checkpoint and everything.
That's mad.
Meanwhile, I'm just hanging out with my family. I felt bad that I had left, but it turned out they left anyway.
that would be like on an
Yeah.
Alexander raid where you get to the final boss, and
Yeah.
because I used to play 14.
Mm-hmm.
So
Alexander, what a trash tier. Anyway, carry on. Sorry.
Dan, I'm assuming that your Twitch name has to do with the name of your character in Final Fantasy 14, but just in case it's not, where did you get your Twitch name from?
Spot on. It's exactly what it is.
He's a true Final Fantasy 14 player, guys.
my original Twitch name was my initials of my name and the year of my birth, and that was terrible because nobody's going to type that in or even bother sticking around for a guy who's got that as his URL. So I thought, it's not a catchy name, but it's a different name. You've got a very ordinary sounding first name, and then you've got a very anime weeb foreign sounding second name. It just kind of makes sense to wipe the channel previously and then come back
Okay.
with a different name. It seems to have worked. People just call me Dan anyway, to be honest. So
It seems to be easier to just.
It's funny because you lead with Dan, and that makes perfect sense. But like, my name is GrindheadJim, which to me is a very simple. It's an affectation to Jim, and yet 90% of people will try to call me Grind, Grindhead, Grin, Grimmy, Grime, and I'm like, my name's in the damn thing. Just call me Jim.
well, yeah, that was a massive
Try
thing
that?
when I was redoing my name in Final Fantasy 14 because my original name, and don't hate me because I was 18, 17 when the game first came out. It's been up for 4 or 5 years now. My name was Deus Fulgur, which means lightning god in Latin, and that's a terrible name.
No, it's not. That's actually a cool name.
It's actually
I
really
like that.
cool. Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was cool, and then I thought to make life easier for me, have my first name be Dan, and then make the second name something completely different. And Kurome is actually 2 Japanese words mushed together, which is a characteristic of the character that I play. So, as far as I can remember, Kuro means eyes, and something Ome means red. So Dan Red Eyes. My character has red eyes, and the fact that it sounded cool as a second name was pretty coincidental, to be honest.
That is great. I just kind of figured, well, that's a really cool last name for Final Fantasy 14, but no, now it's even better.
Now you have the lore.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Someone actually put thought into it. Like what? Yeah.
Who does that?
I know. I was sitting there with one of my old FC members for about 4 hours. She was just like listening to me ramble on about, maybe I should have this name, maybe this name would be cool. What do you think? Just ignored me for 4 hours straight until I got to a name.
Yeah, I've got no inclination that Jim's got some sort of a metal background, given his name. Never at all, and nobody would ever imagine that I've got a child.
Nope, not at all. Thing is, though, people assume that the Grindhead thing is MMO related, and they realize, oh wait, he's wearing a behemoth shirt and napalm death hat, and sings more of an angel and hums, and I'm like, maybe it's grindcore. You'd say, but like,
I
yeah,
mean,
right.
It's kind of a double-edged meaning there, being that your main thing is a Destiny 2 grind.
But that's the thing. I've had this nickname for over 20 years
before
now.
Destiny.
Yeah, way before Destiny. And before Destiny, I would never have touched. I wouldn't. These hands would not touch an MMO. They technically still don't. It's just interesting how names evolve and stuff. But listening to Dan just now talk about how he was going over all these different names with a friend. This reminds me of being in Soul Calibur 6. Friends of mine just getting destroyed, like ripped off of like whiskey and like 3 different kinds of whiskey, vodka, and beer, and we're like 6 hours into a drinking binge, and me and my buddy are like this on the couch, and his wife's like doing the costume editor, and I'm like, do it green, put green everywhere, and then she wouldn't change anything. Go, how's that? I'm like, that's perfect. You know, just making her take every one of my characters and make them like top to bottom green. You know, it's horrible. Just like green,
make it green.
You know, green. And that's as far as I went. But like, I actually have lore and background for my characters in Destiny, but you can't really name them in game or anything. But like all of my characters, all my alts, everything, they have like a story. They're from the same family, and
Nice.
you know, it's pretty cool.
This is kind of off topic to what we've got coming up. I played Destiny 1, never even played Destiny 2. I mean, neither here nor there. What did you think of the fact that your character actually now...
Can you repeat the question?
What do you think of the fact now that in Destiny 2, they gave your character a voice? So like in your head, it's kind of like a book. You picture something completely different to what the developers have actually given you.
Well, that's the thing. Like Destiny 1, we had a voice. I didn't like the voice. I didn't like what the character was saying. The Ghost started speaking for us, and I thought he was a piece of shit. I didn't like anything the Ghost ever had to say, except for the original campaign, pretty much. I didn't like that, and I didn't like that the narrative was going this direction where the Ghost was speaking for us. And then now, where it is in Forsaken, there's maybe six total words spoken in Destiny 2 Forsaken by the character, but they have very, very poignant story points to make. Those few words that are said, I really dug that.
To drop the like statement, you know, like because nobody saw it coming, and then it happened, just like, you know.
Well, the thing is, as someone who like reads the Destiny Reddit pretty avidly, they scour the internet for all the trailers and stuff. It got spoiled before we started playing the game. That there was some speech in there, and I'm like, God damn. I felt I try not to spoil anything too much, but like,
and you did such a good job avoiding
like, come on,
all of it. Like I remember seeing you post that Bungie said, made some comment about if you don't want spoilers, now's the time to unfollow or something. You're like, well, we're going dark. We're not paying attention to anything about Destiny 2 until after it releases.
Yeah, I'll like mute hashtags and stuff all the time in Twitter and all that sort of stuff. I avoid the shit very, very religiously. Yep. But to come back around and to kind of finish answering your question, I really feel like what we need in Destiny moving forward, and whether they call it Destiny 3 or whatever it is, I don't want my character to have a voice, because I like the idea of me putting in my head or me speaking. But I think that for the Ghost, we should have a branch, and not even words, just a tone, like irritated, sad, happy, whatever. So you can kind of have some fun with it, and to where it's not like you're taking the line of dialogue. I want to be surprised by the line of dialogue, you know. So basically, I want it to be to where the Ghost is asking you, is reading your mind, character's mind, to see what your reaction is, to interpret that in their own, through their own filter, right?
Kind of like how Luke talks to R2D2, or they're chirping.
Exactly. So the Ghost would be like, "Oh, Alice is mad. We don't like that, Vanguard. We think that's wrong." You know, like basically, the Ghost doesn't really have their own opinion either. They're just trying to express what you're thinking, but they have their own identity. So it's like this weird. And I agree with chat and you guys too. I think it's an immersion thing. I don't miss the voice. I understand why people do, but I feel like we need to have more of a decision in how our character interacts with others, because I've invested so much in these characters that I'm like an actor that's been inside of a role for a long time. You don't just write my character any old way. You know, maybe I would have shoved my gun in Aldrin's throat and then started telling him like, be nice to mommy and have some pancakes. Like, I don't know, like maybe I would have done that.
Yeah.
But like, but I feel like we've got to a point in the storytelling of this game that it needs to be a little bit more personalized than it is.
Yeah.
But how they would do that and maintain the legend, I don't really know. But thank goodness, Bungie has a good handle on when the servers should and should not go live.
Hey,
unlike
look at that,
Bethesda.
guys. That's a wonderful, wonderful transition.
Short version on this: Fallout 76 is technically out, and the servers are on, and many people who have preloaded can play right now, and it doesn't matter because the reviews coming back are horrible, absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
And I thought that Bethesda would do better than this. They have not. We'll see. I will reserve my judgment until my favorite Fallout fans weigh in. But this article is self-explanatory. Servers went live a day early, and they haven't it back. Yay! Do you guys have any thoughts on that other than wow, have that little discipline in your server room?
So first of all, I took advantage of this being live. I jumped on PC and continued my beta character a little bit. I'm excited about the game. I think the beta went well. It could have gone better, but it went well. But at the same time, I have some friends, one in particular as a streamer, that bought a hard copy of the game from a local store, and it's being shipped to them. So he has an activation key in the box of the game that's being shipped to him. Therefore, since he uninstalled the beta, because you don't want to have two copies of the game on your box, he gets no access until his key shows up tomorrow. So I think this was a big mistake. And if this was something like Destiny, where you have a solo campaign that you can run and play individually semi-offline without interacting with other people, I think this would be fine and everybody gets it in their own time. But this is a 100% online game where you are impacted by other people in your world at the same time. And so now the people that have hard copies that they're waiting to come in the mail, who ordered it on Amazon or from Best Buy or whatever, they are now literally a day behind. And if you're a 12-year-old kid who's not in school today, you're hours behind this kid. You got people that are... I loaded up this evening before the podcast started, and there was somebody that was already level 20 today. So the beta characters are getting an extra day ahead. And in a game where one of the end game states is to try and launch nukes and impact the map severely, it's an unfair advantage. So this is a big mistake. And this goes for someone who's been kind of sympathetic to Bethesda doing their first online multiplayer game, trying to get it right. They made some mistakes in the beta, but they're trying to fix a lot of things. This one is really a big step back to me.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. It's kind of similar. I mean, I'm gonna have to go back to the MMO example again, but it's when servers have you have server maintenance, or you have a big pack comes out and they do 24-hour maintenance. Sometimes the servers for 14 have gone up 3 or 4 hours ahead. So you've got people who are literally 10, 20 quests ahead of everybody else. And especially if you're going into dungeons and raids and stuff like that, people are going to be so pissed, for want of a better word, that people have got a head start when they were waking up at 9 a.m. to get on server live. And you've got people who no-lifed the maintenance and stayed up until 5 a.m. until someone on Reddit posted servers are now live. And you've got people rushing and literally breaking quest NPCs so that nobody else can progress. It's a mistake, essentially. You are correct.
And for me, it boils down to something real simple. It's not like Bethesda's the first company to have this kind of game where it's a fully online game or mostly online game or has an always online functionality. There were plenty of places they could have gone, plenty of tests they could have run, plenty of play testers that have experience in these realms to try and avoid bugs like this or even just stupid decisions like this. I don't think anyone in the long run would have been that angry if they said, "Oh, the servers are on," and turn them back off.
Exactly.
I don't think anyone would have been that mad because, like, oh man, it would have been nice to play, but it's like I get it. Like, because the initial part is that was stupid, and then there was I can see where people not getting access, progress, and all that. I think it was stupid. I think that it does not bode well for the future of that game, and frankly, at this point, that franchise. In as much as depending upon how this game actually goes, which again, this is not a good start. It's not. Fallout could take a pretty big hit, and worry about that because there's a lot of people that I care about that love this game very, very much, and I hope the game does well, but everything I've read so far, and I mean everything, has been like, well, it's not a good game. It's not a horrible game. It's a game.
Yeah.
Kind of like
Fallout as a franchise is beloved by a lot of people. I personally have never been a Fallout fan.
And for Fallout to have that kind of a reaction out the gate is like what?
And Todd was so confident during the E3 conference. He was taking shots at everybody, and now you got to think about his reaction after servers go live a day early for people who just happen to preload it on their PCs.
And I honestly just opened the launcher this morning and thought, you know what, let's open up the Bethesda launcher. Let's see if there's a patch waiting so I can be preloaded when servers go online. Why is the play button lit up? Why is there a green dot next to the server status? Is this really happening? And I began playing my beta character for a good 30 minutes before driving to work. So,
I would love for it to have been a lot of fun for people, and maybe they could come back and say, well, hey, those of you that were in there early, we're going to give you 12 hours where you have a lockout tomorrow or something. Because it's interesting to have like some fun with it and put some more in there and kind of like do some lawlessness to it, I guess. But
if I was Bethesda, if we accidentally set the servers up, I would have just automatically triggered all 3 nuke sites at one time as part of the lore, and just shut it and then shut down the servers off of the nuke launch, and made
what they should do.
Of everything, and just
that's exactly what they should do. When everybody gets their keys and they all jump on, Bethesda literally nukes the servers and resets it. That would be
Yep. But I mean, and it does. So from a business perspective and from an online MMO perspective, it really sounds like Bethesda kind of got off to a bad start, but they can recover. Somebody who can't recover, and it definitely ended on a bad note, is this couple, Jacob and Christian, who have been ordered to pay back over $12 million to Nintendo for running a pirated ROM websites. And I'm reading this article, and all you need to know is the editor's take on this article. The lawsuit and subsequent rulings shows that Nintendo means business when it comes to their copyright. Somebody putting their foot down. We've seen it in the past with Fortnite buying a pirating software company trying to get serious about hacking in the game and cheating in the game. Now Nintendo stepping in because, let's be honest, Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, all the game manufacturers, they all know that there's people ripping off games. There's new ways to do it every week. Someone's coming up with a different way to do it. And Nintendo came in. I mean, they've banned, if I read this correctly, they've banned them. Well, they can never infringe on their copyrighted material again. They've removed all of their hardware, Nintendo game and hardware, in the possession.
Yeah, anything they have Nintendo is gone. So if they have, like, let's say they had, if they're running a ROM site, I'm guessing there's a lot of like Nintendo cartridges that were in there. And they were all seized. And it's like, I get where they're coming from. I get the legal precedent here, but that's still a bit of a dick move. You want $12 million, like, to take the $12 million, buy your own damn cartridges, Nintendo. Let me keep the physical games at least, okay? I get it. But, like, come on. If someone's trying to come in and said, like for example, Nintendo has a big beef with people streaming their games. Do it anyway.
Why?
I stream NES games from time to time that I own, and I own this legally. But if Nintendo came to me, said, we don't want you streaming this game, and we're going to take your copy, I'd be like, I'm going to break your freaking nose, sir. You're not taking my game.
Well, that's the thing, right? Is that when you buy a copy of a game, you don't own the data on the disc. You own the physical thing. So
Right.
You know,
Licensing is
I'm
a
a
weird
big,
thing.
yeah, like I'm a big advocate for people who set up like private servers for stuff and who pirate stuff, only because when you go through a process of pirating a product, there's a reason you're pirating it other than just a financial gain. And a lot of that would probably come from the fact that you see a company being incredibly greedy. So what do? You say, we're going to keep on doing this so that you eventually learn to stop doing these DMCA takedowns of people who have legally bought your game and are just trying to enjoy it and
Well,
share it with other people.
that I understand the philosophy behind that. That's like saying, okay, that I am, or at least I was, a vegetarian. I actually started reintroducing meat into my diet as of last week.
Mhm.
But I still have very strong feelings about the meat industry and how it's done. So saying I'm going to pirate your game because I don't think that you have a right to DMCA people who legally bought the game and are streaming. That'd be like me going into a grocery store that I know does not support organic meat farming and only deals with like kill houses and stuff,
Mhm.
and saying, okay, I'm going to go trash your produce section now because I don't agree with your meat buying philosophies that I don't agree with. I understand, and I don't think that anyone should be DMCA'd for streaming gaming content in this day and age. I think it's stupid. I think Nintendo is way behind the times, and someone needs to grab them by the throat and be like, "Look, buddy, we're going to do it whether you want us to do it or not, and you need to either get on board or just get out of the way." Like I get that.
Mm-hmm.
My whole thing is that here is where I draw the line. I feel like creating ROMs for old Nintendo games, and by old I mean something that was only ever available physically. Now, if it's available digitally now, it is exempt from this entire argument. That means anything that's currently for sale digitally is exempt from this argument. Creating ROMs for games that are no longer available digitally, I think, is important for gaming preservation and the history and the culture. Okay,
Yep. 100% agree.
I'm a huge advocate of that, and I think that Nintendo doesn't understand that. And I think if they were smart, they would just take all of these ROMs that they've seized and just literally plug them into their e-store. I know they're just taking ROMs and plugging it into an emulator that they own and selling it. Well, then just put them all on. Put
did the
every
work for
last
you.
game on there. Just do it.
Exactly.
If you can't get the licensing, tell us. We cannot obtain licensing for, and then put this list of games. This is subject to change. Well, communicate with us what you're wanting to do, because for a few decades there were games that you could not get any other way unless you want to go on eBay and pay a couple $100 or a couple $1,000 in some cases.
Yeah.
$multi-$1,000. So it's like you can't. All right.
So I
Like,
can.
what if Pepsi? What if a Pepsi came to my house? Because I have this old Pepsi can from like 1970. Decided that I wanted to take that can and recreate it. I can have a version of that can that I can give to my kid because this can's getting rusty.
Mm.
So I just scan the can and have it reprinted on a can for my own private use. Would Pepsi have the right to come in?
Take all of your Pepsi signs off the wall.
Yeah, exactly. Ban me from ever drinking Pepsi again. Like, give me a break. At some point, your corporate ownership has to lessen.
Look,
like
hackers lose their computers when they're hacking. Like I'm thinking of Swordfish, right? That Hugh Jackman movie where he's banned from touching a computer ever again or something like that. Okay, so if you've done something so criminally wrong, and you've okay, I can understand having a pretty strong reaction to your ability to be around a computer or something like that. But they're video games. They paid you $12 million. They did you a favor by digitizing games that you might not have already digitized, to Jim's point. I mean, let's kind of give them they deserve a little bit of public shaming so they can set an example for the other ROM sites to be scared, because they should be scared, because Nintendo clearly means business here, and then Sony and Microsoft should probably step up to the plate with that. But okay, Leave them with their old Nintendo. Leave them with their old SNES. Just
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
leave them with the shame. Take away the ROM creation hardware, or have them, as part of the agreement, remove it. The stuff that doesn't allow them to play the games but allows them to
Right.
bootleg the game. Sure, make them get rid of that hardware, but allow them to keep their Nintendo stuff. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
That's a bit, because that's a whole other thing. Like, there's this whole argument about, digital game ownership in today's day and age, and digital movie ownership. And I actually have a relevant story with this, and I'm not going to go too far off the beaten path here because we'll be here all night. Because I'm really passionate about this. I recently integrated my Fandango Now account and my Vudu account into Movies Anywhere, which is the Disney hub and all that stuff, which makes it a lot easier. Somewhere in the last month, my digital copy of Infinity War with special features is now only a digital copy of the movie and no special features anywhere unless I'm on moviesanywhere.com, which is not an app that's available. It's not available on your streaming services. It's only on phones and tablets. So if I want the special features, I got to use their app. Now, I can sideload that app onto my Roku or my Fire TV, which I have done. But the average person is not going to do that. So the special features that I paid for, I can't access. I have the Blu-ray, which is the main reason I bought the Blu-ray. I like the special features.
Yeah.
The fact that the digital copy had the bonus features was, well, a bonus for me. The digital copy was for convenience's sake. But for them to switch the copy access like that, I don't think it was necessarily intentional. I think it's just the way that they've changed how the content is aggregated. I think they've changed that because they're integrating so many other things, and I get there's moving parts and stuff. But when we talk about, digital rights management, these licenses can get pulled anytime, and it makes for very, very strange bedfellows. And I constantly get made fun of by my family and my friends for always wanting physical copies of movies in particular. Well, guess what? I have a physical copy of the movie. As long as I have a valid working disc player, I can play the movie.
Yeah.
Games are different. Games are very different, and it's a whole other discussion because most games have some online content or online DRM. That's a whole other thing. I get that. Movies? Like, for the longest time, as long as I own the movie, I can watch the movie. But now, like, the version of the movie I have is different with no notice. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So, like, this whole thing is just, Nintendo is a company that flatly and arrogantly refuses to evolve, and now they're holding other people to task for holding them to task to try and evolve. If Nintendo, when the Wii came out, doubled down on the digital content with the old NES games, they would not have a beef now. They have not put enough R&D or it's not that difficult to digitize a Nintendo game, guys. And they've done like maybe a third of them. It's like, people want these games, put them out there. And but I hope they take the $12 million that they're getting from this lawsuit, if they ever see it, and just put it into marketing all these NES games, and not on a stupid NES Classic either.
No, they're too busy. Too busy developing Waluigi for Ultimate.
Hey, I got a movie question for you, Jim, before we move on to the next topic. Since you collect hard copies of movies, do you throw away the case and put them into a binder, or do you actually have like a bookshelf wall of cases?
Bookshelf wall of cases.
So if I told you my friend's got, like those 150 those binders, he's got like 2 or 3 of those things.
Nope.
Shaking his head.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. No.
It hurts me a little bit to see too. It hurts me a little bit to see too. But
well, here's the thing. Like, all right, okay, you have kids. I have kids. I have cats. Okay, and I drink. You drink. We all drink. If you leave that book open, all it takes is a mad cat to pee, shit, whatever, I accidentally spill beer, whatever.
Kid
There's
spits
way
up
too many situations.
food. You'll find raisins crammed in there, goldfish.
You know, like one time,
Must be a raisin in the
was
top left of the screen.
I did have a booklet of discs. I still have that same booklet to this day. And I would carry around like 50 of them in my car back when, like, you know, I couldn't get a disc changer. There was no digital music. I would just kind of swap them out and stuff. And there was like some rain had gotten into the car, and there was a toolbox on the floor. And just so happened that the rust from the toolbox seeped into the water, and then the case got on there. And then there was about, I want to say 7 or 8 discs that have rust damage on them. One of them is a reissue of Kill 'Em All, of the first Metallica record, which has bonus tracks that I didn't know were like very limited edition versions that you couldn't get. Granted, you can get those. I have those tracks still. I had digitized. I have since digitized those songs. It's no big deal. But that particular copy, like, I'm the only person I know that had a copy of that version of the disc. You know, and it got rust, you know, like rust damage on it, which was horrible. It's not playable. I had to throw it away and buy a new copy and stuff. Like, I mean, ultimately, like, you gotta take care of the stuff. No, CDs, I get it. You can put them in like boxes or whatever and put them away. CDs, I get. But like with a movie, it needs to be in the case on a shelf. And then if you don't want to keep the boxes out, that's why you get the ones with the digital copies, and you watch the digital copies if it comes down to it. I understand that, and I support that. But,
that's my Black Friday thing, to go find the Blu-rays on sale. As long as they have the digital copy available, I'll go buy like the $5 and $10 Blu-rays for that. And they go in a drawer or on the shelf over by the entertainment center, and then I will activate the digital copies.
If anyone is into Disney, Star Wars, Marvel, any of those movies, they do have a Disney movie club in the US. I don't know if it's available in the other countries, but in the US it has it. You started out with like 5 movies for $1, and then after that you get to buy like 3 movies at full prices around $30 to $35, depending on if you get the 4K or not. And then after that, you can just have whatever you want. And throughout your membership, you're getting like 50% off, 40% off, this and that. You're saving a ton of money. No one wants that. I have a code, GrindheadJim.com/Marvel. So you can get a discount on that stuff. But like, I was looking for a copy of Thor: The Dark World because I just wanted it on my shelf. I wanted a cheap copy. I knew it wasn't a popular film, but it turned out it was in a low print run. It was really hard to find. It was like $30 everywhere you went. I'm not paying $30 for the Dark World, man. And it turned out I didn't have the original Thor either. I thought I did. I did not. And so I come across this, you know, the Disney Movie Club, and I went looking, and I could get Thor, Dark World, Cool Runnings, which is one of my favorite Disney movies. I think I grabbed one of the, I don't know if it was one of the Iron Man movies, might have been 3, or no, it was Guardians of the Galaxy. So I didn't have it on Blu-ray yet. I had it digitally. I didn't have it on Blu-ray. Got those for like $1. And those were like cool additions to have in the collection and whatnot. And then I've bought Black Panther when it came out. I bought Infinity War when it came out. And I'm about to get Ant-Man and Wasp. And I did the math this morning. I ended up paying like $20 for each of them, which is less than you'd pay the Blu-rays otherwise, and I'm getting the 4K version with a regular Blu-ray and the digital for that price. So it's totally worth it.
Target is $25 to $30 to get like that edition of the Blu-ray. So
and to be able to have, and to be fair, I watch the digital copies the most, but I like having them on the shelf in the event. Like when the internet goes out here, I can't work because I work from home,
and you can't watch digital movies.
I can't watch the digital movies, and like the kids, they're like, "What do we do?" I'm like, let me pull up this plastic disc. Let me show you something, you know. And then we go watch films, and I worry that video gaming does not have enough archival and historic preservation inherently built in to the culture. And this lawsuit, to me, although fully justified for Nintendo, I understand it. I get it. I feel like they could have prevented it by being more invested in their own heritage and history. I hope that collectively we learn something from it.
And
and speaking of things that we've learned from,
there we go.
I'm gonna flip flop here a little bit.
I saw it coming. I was gonna try and help there.
Yeah, Stan Lee, regrettably passed away yesterday. Lived a very full life at 95 years, though, nearly a century of awesomeness. And I'm not gonna belabor the point, except to say that without Stan Lee, you don't have me on this podcast right now. It's the bottom line. I am a gigantic Spider-Man fan. He introduced me to so many other things through Marvel licenses, and he had a way of writing that made you feel like he was only talking to you, which is a lost art form. And if someone's talking directly to you in print, and you really think about it, it can get a little creepy. Never quite as creepy as what happened in 2012's The Amazing Spider-Man game, where there's DLC where you could actually swing around Manhattan as Stan Lee, and with his voice acting.
It's so weird.
And I haven't played it, but there's this article.
But what the main difficulty I have is that it was in a terrible game off of a terrible movie.
Yeah, I get it.
Like if Insomniac can just patch that in tomorrow, please.
Yes.
Give me
a
full Marvel Spider-Man campaign with Stan Lee in it.
Is that, like, because it is something that Sony's had such a tight grasp on the copyright, it shouldn't be difficult to lift.
Yeah.
And I hope that they do that. There's only been maybe 6 really good Spider-Man games out there. The very first one on PS1 being one of those.
Yes, where you entered the cheats, and then if you put a rude word in, it punched you in the face.
Yes.
I remember that.
The first movie-based one for PS2 was quite good, because it started the whole Bruce Campbell narration thing for your tutorials. Well, it was quite a fun game. And then the second one,
I remember that,
because before we had Spider-Man 2, we had Spider-Man, the amazing, regular Spider-Man on PS2, which is a great game. It was an update to that PS1 Spider-Man. It wasn't as adventurous, wasn't as comic booky, but it was fun. But then Spider-Man 2 came out, which had the free roam, which it has taken us 15 years to really get back. But we got it back, and I feel like, and Marvel has been saying basically that this Spider-Man game is meant to be them for video games what Iron Man was for the films. And I'm like, that's a bold statement. All right, let's see if you can hold it up. Let's see if you can hold it up.
It was probably the best announcement that could come out of Marvel aside from an MCU film, because Spider-Man is one of the, if not the iconic Marvel superhero generation.
And I secretly hope that Disney pulls out a big fat wad of money and says, Sony, you can't turn down this amount of money. We're taking it back.
Can't turn down any amount of money.
I don't think
people are like, go ahead.
I don't think Sony would. I mean, they certainly don't need the money, but they're crazy. Disney now has a printing press in their corporate offices. Can confirm, with the amount of franchises that they own and have their name on, they literally just vomit money. And it's like baby birds.
If any other corporation were having this kind of a stranglehold in any market, the punk in me would be so against it. But I'm like, fucking Star Wars. Pardon me. If any other
there's one. Count it.
There's an edit for you. If any other corporation had this kind of a stranglehold on any market, I'd be against it. But the punk in me is like, who cares? It's Star Wars and Marvel. I don't care. Gimme. And when they announced the whole Fox acquisition, I was like, go do it. Like, please. Yes. They've been screwing it up for years.
Give me
the European Union just approved it
with Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Give it to me.
And don't they own ESPN now? And
I believe so, but they have to relinquish a lot of anything that's like fact-based. They can't have in Europe. They're already in the works of selling off anything that does like news media and stuff in Europe, which is like, good. Just give me X-Men. Give me X-Men. Give me Fantastic Four. Put them in like,
Give them to Marvel. They know what they're doing with their own characters.
And the thing is that a lot of people and a lot of people are like on this whole thing with like the most current Star Wars trilogy. I want this current Star Wars trilogy to be over. I want them to create something brand new that doesn't have nearly as high as stakes. Just give me a good Star Wars story. Rogue One was a great Star Wars story. And then it happened to hook in so well to A New Hope was like, that was icing on the cake. If you did not had that, just give me this heist movie with Star Wars. I'm like, I'm there. It just proves that Disney knows what the hell they're doing. I would never, I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. Like if you'd have told me when I was 10 years old, 15 years old, Disney's going to buy Marvel and Lucasfilm and it's going to be the best thing to happen to your childhood.
So what Mr. Boop has just said in the chat, what Sony did, what Mr. Boop Cannon has just said in the chat, I want Venom in the MCU.
Oh, yeah.
I am so severely disappointed with Sony. Like, the reason they made Venom was to hold the license. Yeah, they don't want to make a Venom movie. They don't care about Venom. But the fact that they just didn't give him to Marvel along with Spider-Man. Like, Sony make great games. Their gaming department is winning right now. But everything else, they just don't know what to do. Give that stuff to everyone else. Give your franchises to Marvel to make superhero movies. Give your technology department to Samsung so they can make your products and slap a Sony symbol on it.
Samsung PS4 can confirm.
Exactly.
Samsung add on their slots in like an X32.
Look at Vegas. They sold off the Sony Vegas license. It's no longer called Sony. And the guys that make Magix make Vegas now. And it's basically Magix, but with a lot of the Vegas functionality that you like with some cool technology in it. I think it was smart. They stopped making laptops and all this stuff. I don't know that I want Disney to like absorb Sony, but I want them to absorb a couple things. I want Spider-Man back, which is the only thing I really want Disney to have. Sony. I think Sony's gaming thing, their gaming thing is, PlayStation, that whole development, like they really are killing it with. And I feel like if they start exploring gaming as a service more, the way that Microsoft seems to be doing it and so forth, I think that, understand what I'm getting towards is this. Consoles need to go away in the way that they are now.
That's a tough one.
I have to disagree with you there, Jim. I have to.
Well, here's the thing. All a gaming console is in today's day and age, a customized PC. Okay? What Microsoft and Sony and Steam need to do together is develop specs that they need, hardware that they need, in 1 to 3 different versions of a gaming PC. You can call it an Xbox, you can call it a PlayStation, I don't care. But it's going to have the same guts, and you've got to have the 1080 version, the 1080 60 frames, and the 4K version.
Yeah, but then you create an oligopoly and you don't have any innovation. Like, the reason why the Xbox One X is as good as it is because they're competing with Sony to make a better console. Now,
I'm sorry, the Xbox One X is good,
but Apple and Samsung are competing with each other on tablets and mobile devices, and it's still the same concept. You still have a processor. You still have the speed.
My point is that the more you decentralize the console, the actual hardware side of thing, the better off. Meaning this, make the innovations in software and experiences. Stop trying to outdo each other in the technology, because PC will always beat you in the technology. That's the whole point of what I'm getting at here is if you decentralize the hardware and stop trying to innovate things that have been on PCs for 10 years. When Xbox Live came out, everyone acted like it was this big freaking to-do, myself included. I didn't really realize what had been going on in PC gaming the previous couple years. And then I was like, oh, they just took an idea PC gaming had and they just put a brand name on it and they're selling it. Now I
Mm.
understand why people are mad. I'm not primarily a PC gamer. I'm primarily a console gamer. I just think that Sony and Microsoft need to like just realize that these things they're flopping on the table every year at E3, they're not genitals. Just really deflated egos just go away. And they need to realize that hardware is not what is selling. And that's the biggest money loss for them as well.
No, but
if you go to
the PlayStations
unified-
are selling though. That's the thing. Is that because
Well,
Sony
they're
is so
selling.
trusted as a gaming division, is because
right. So
firstly
here's
because of
the
the games on their
Exactly.
consoles, but the fact that they're shifting
Mhm.
consoles is because of their games. Like it's a very much a cycle.
And they would continue to do that if they had a unified console platform with all of their competitors, and then the innovation came from the actual games.
Mhm.
You would spend less money on R&D for these communication systems. You would spend less money on R&D for operating systems. You know, you would sell more money for the software. Have more money freed up to sell different softwares. And you know, I think Valve had the right idea with the Steam machine. They just lacked the ability in the hardware market to really make that happen. Whereas if Sony and Microsoft agree to just kind of make a compatible machine, and they could have the Microsoft version, and they could have the Sony version, but they play all the same games, and you.
But it's kind of like the the Google Play Store and the Apple Store.
Exactly.
Right?
That's exactly what I'm going at.
They're different. They may have their own, like Apple has their own proprietary processor, kind of, and they have their own setup, right? The system is unique, its own operating system, everything, just like the Android operating system is unique as well on the Google Play devices. But you still have a lot of cross-compatible applications, and you can still install Google apps on Apple devices.
Exactly.
And you can still do Find My Device on Apple on your Google device and stuff like that. Their hardware is still specific to their own brand to an extent, but the standardization is there. Right. Which processors are getting faster, RAM on the devices, storage space, all those, you know, processor power, screen size, stuff like that. Those are still like Samsung and Apple are still competing for those things, but they're still the same general concept. If even Nintendo and Microsoft and Sony all jump in.
Not to mention that if there was more emphasis placed on, okay, here are the bare specs, all games coming out will be optimized for, but they will also have the ability to be scaled up. Because all gaming systems now are x86 architecture. They're PC based.
Yeah.
That's what they are now. That was not the case a generation, 2 generations ago. It is now. There's no reason not to go with a more uniform
completely
platform.
Messed up beast. Whatever the hell they put into that,
which was stupid. But the thing is, if you were to go with that where they can agree on the specs, which now lowers development cost, that also means that you could literally take any game. Now I have a Sony launcher. You'll now have an Xbox launcher that PC gamers could latch onto if they so desired. The console gamer could still buy a box they know is going to work, you know, out of the box, right? And everyone has access to these games. You're suddenly selling more games than you ever have before. No more Activision calls where they're like, oh, it's not performing right. You know.
And you still have the ability at exclusive content or even exclusive games where you could release it on a Sony specific client 6 months before it opens up to PC and Microsoft.
Exactly, and you could do all that stuff.
Oh, by the way,
and
they do that with all the games on. Sony did that with. Weren't they supposed to? Didn't they release God of War? Aren't they going to release God of War on a PC eventually? Like, look at what Monster Hunter World did that.
No way, really?
Monster Hunter World was console based first, and then it came out on the PC. You know, so you could still do that. It happens today. And if you just, I agree with you completely, Jim. If you get out of the exclusivity of the console that Sony provides and the console that Microsoft provides, because the hardware is almost generically the same. You might have different manufacturers, brands, and stuff like that in there, but you still need graphics, good hardware, good. They need to step it up to the next. The new next gen is going to get into the streaming world, into the content, into the online content and stuff like that. You're going to make it a glorified, expensive Netflix device and Roku device and Apple TV device all built into one with the ability to buy games off of a store. That's what it should be.
And I feel like we're going to get to a place where, I hate to say this, I don't want it to be like the Microsoft Game Pass, but it's going to get closer to that, And as you get closer to that, the question then becomes, I don't. That's not the feature I want. I want what we have now, more open doors. I want to be able to play Spider-Man on my PC and not have to worry about playing on my PS4. That's the bottom line.
I don't mind. I don't mind paying for the PlayStation Plus and getting the access to that one free game a month. That if I keep my Plus account active, I will have the game license available.
Dude, I will
in a heartbeat.
I'll pay for those services even though I'm playing on PC. If they open that up, and I think that the cross-play and cross-save initiative they're doing with Fortnite, that there's going to be leaching out to Activision and so forth.
The cross-play thing is going to be huge for Sony. Like, it's already been
the first step
for them because they can't agree to allow people access to their games if they're not on the console. But this Fortnite step is going to be huge for Sony going forward for the PS5. Because there's no way you can survive on your own in the gaming landscape, at least in the 21st century.
Nope. And I think
isolating
they realize
yourself
that
on the internet.
I think that the competition needs to move closer to the friendly one. I think that these big companies need to take a closer look at like what the development companies do. Like development companies will pat each other on the back all the time and learn from each other. And these hardware companies, they call themselves hardware companies, but they're really software manufacturers that just happen to get really good at hardware. And I have nothing but love for Microsoft and for Sony for fighting the good fight, and certainly for like Phil and the guys over at Microsoft for pulling their head collectively out of their ass and realizing that they're not the bee's knees. And Sony with this announcement with the whole Fortnite thing, despite being about 8 months too late, still, at least they said it this generation, and they're actually trying it now because they know that this carving
100%.
out the market is not going to work the way that it has in the past. It's just not. Because eventually people are gonna revolt on you and just buy a PC and not play your games at all, unless you give them more choices. Speaking of more choices, PUBG is coming to PS4 in December, and nobody cares.
Snore.
No one cares about that game. I think that if they'd have come to PS4 first, maybe we'd be talking about this game. Being honest,
nobody cares. I don't play battle royales anymore.
Well, like,
just kind of bored of them.
Well, yeah.
I bought PUBG.
Yeah,
and I wanted to like it because I thought Fortnite was silly, and I still think Fortnite's a little silly. I liked the idea of PUBG, and then I played it, and then I waited for a patch for it to optimize, and then that patch made it worse, and the next patch made it worse, and the next patch made it worse.
Have you heard of Blue Hole Entertainment?
No, I have not.
You know how you make PUBG better? You uninstall it.
That's true. And the funny part is that amidst this announcement, you can get PUBG for free on Xbox right now. It's free. It costs nothing. It's like, so who cares about the full version?
And PUBG has become such a microtransaction game. Like, you play, you get points, you spend those points in game that you've accrued to buy cases, but some of those cases require a key. Well, guess what? The only way to get the key is to spend actual money. What? Yeah. But and if this was like a Fortnite game where it was free to play, where you can download it for free and not have to pay for anything, I can understand microtransactions to support it. And these are strictly cosmetic. There's zero change to the game other than cosmetic. So coming
and that model works because of how much money they're making. I have zero issue.
Yeah, no, that model would work if you didn't have to buy the game first.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I feel like that's something that more games probably need to do. So what I feel like would be cool is like, because you can't sustain that for every single game out there. But what if you had a game? It doesn't have to be a battle royale. It doesn't have to be PUBG. It doesn't have to be Destiny or whatever. But what if if you paid up front a $30 a quarter, right? You're guaranteed all the consumables that all the whatever, with like 5 exceptions, or like 1 per week is the exception, or you get everything but like this weekly thing that is exclusive to you if you pay for that one thing. And that could be Destiny, that could be Battlefront, that could be any game where if it's a cosmetic thing and you really want it, you could pay in advance to get the game and also get the cosmetics, with the exception of like 52 exclusive things, emotes, whatever, 25 or bi-weekly or once a month or something. And there's ways to make money in that market, and I think it's growing and it's evolving and changing. When a company like Epic, who set out to make Fortnite as a single player game, and it's okay as a single player game, like it's fun.
Yeah.
But the battle royale clearly is just like no one saw that coming, not even them. They did it just to become relevant. They wanted people to pay attention to the single player, so they got the battle royale for free. And the opposite happened. Everyone paid attention to their battle royale and like, there's a single player game?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is fine.
Ninja was paying attention.
Oh yeah, he was.
Yeah, he was. So I want to make one point about the PS4, and then I want to bring us to the last topic if I can.
Yes. Yes.
With PUBG being released on PlayStation 4, yes, it's PUBG. It's not super exciting. Some people still like it. This does further make the point that you were talking about earlier about gaming companies kind of getting with allowing more games on their consoles, so nobody goes to get a PC to play PUBG. If you want to play PUBG now, you can play it on our systems, says Sony. That's the only benefit to it, and I'm hoping that this is kind of the way going forward. Because yes, Sony did start as a hardware company. Now they're into gaming, they're into entertainment, they're into all sorts of stuff. They could still excel at their hardware stuff, but they need to kind of continue to make this advancement into allowing more different games onto their consoles, so you don't have the drive to go somewhere else. And then when they make
I feel like ultimately this comes down to stop thinking that your stranglehold is on the hardware market and just realize when you just make your gaming platform a platform rather than a piece of hardware.
Well, exactly. This is what I was going to say, is that, like you said, you should focus a lot more on
and
thinking.
Then we just lose his voice. He just cuts out.
Yeah. It's bad.
Yeah. So
another way of saying what he was probably going to say was, how much money would Microsoft make if Sony and them could come to a deal and release Spider-Man on Xbox? Probably a lot. Probably a ton. Probably a way more profit margin than they're making off of any PS4s they've sold because of Spider-Man.
There's plenty of other industries where competitors are customers. I work on a clinical research organization. So in the pharmaceutical industry, there are companies that we compete against, but at the same time have divisions of theirs that use us as their service providers, and vice versa. It happens. So let's go ahead and open that door for entertainment too, right? Sony can sell the license of Spider-Man to Microsoft and make a little bit of for the Xbox One people who are loyal to only Microsoft consoles, Sony can rake in a little bit of the royalty for that being sold on Microsoft.
But then I feel like the individuality of the brands don't really make any sense. Like, why not just have a massive single brand?
Because on the PlayStation 4, you get specific content, and on the Xbox One, you don't get some of the PlayStation 4 exclusives, but you might have some Xbox One exclusive things. You still have ways of exclusivity, and you still have ways of driving brands in different consoles.
But then when you have the same games with different exclusive contents, like you get an extra mission or you get an extra skin, I feel like that's even more of a slap in the face to people who want to own stuff on multiple consoles, because you have the same product but different nuances.
But if crossplay existed and cross-save existed, you're opening it up a little bit more, where you're more dependent on the game and less dependent on the console. You can play it wherever you want.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, if we're talking about online crossplay, sure. But in terms of single-player campaigns, which Spider-Man is completely a single-player game, I feel like the fact that Sony have hired Insomniac to make that game specifically for their console means that you only get the input from people who want to make the best Spider-Man game ever. And Sony saw that Insomniac were those people. Now, if they were to say, hey, Microsoft, we want to sell you this game, you pay us a little bit of money and we allow it to be coded onto your machine, that then takes away all of the work that they made making it exclusively for the PlayStation.
I mean, that's fair. That is fair. I guess it's a matter of market research as to where your profit's going to be. Are you going to serve more profit by leaving it exclusive to the PlayStation 4 and risk your loyal members of the PC and Xbox community? They're not going to be customers now. And do you have enough of a foothold on the Sony market to get enough people to buy this game? Or if you open it up in a way where you lose that console exclusivity, but you still allow some extra coding into PlayStation or into PC and into Xbox. You have two other markets that you can now tap into in some way where they will enjoy the game, but you can still make each of the markets feel special in some way. That's the challenge with gaming. That's the challenge with any kind of online media, where you have different ways of looking at any of it.
Yeah.
So, speaking of online media and speaking of online content and stuff like that, there's an interesting article here about senators asking for an FTC investigation into ads on children's apps. And as a parent, having a 2-year-old whose morning routine involves sitting with me and watching YouTube Kids for about 15 to 20 minutes before she goes to daycare, this is a little concerning because I don't have very many apps. Like the iPad that she uses literally has the default iPad applications. I've deleted everything else but YouTube and YouTube Kids, and she only goes into YouTube Kids. But the fact that there's other apps that are targeting kids between the ages of 2 and 5, if I recall correctly.
Yep.
I think you're correct, yeah.
Yeah, they're looking at these apps that require advertising, and it's the same old gimmick for any kind of application, right? You need to use a certain item to do something in your game to get further. You can get a more powerful version of that item by watching an ad or something like that. Or, in some games it's make this happen faster if you watch this ad. And a 2-year-old's not going to know this stuff, and they're not going to understand this, but they're going to go ahead and go through this, and it just feels like the senators called it a manipulative nature. And I'm not normally one to agree with political statements and stuff like that, or be outspoken about it, but the language that they're using is harsh, but it does feel accurate. You're manipulating a 2-year-old or a 5-year-old with all this kind of input, and the rate at which it's happening is very concerning. And then you also hear about some other stuff being snuck into these. Like I don't put any of my daughter's information on these apps. I may put her year of birth because now the app owner knows that there's a 2-year-old. Okay, fine. That's a little annoying, but it's not as annoying as knowing when her actual date of birth is, knowing what her real name is, knowing what city she lives in. I don't want to share any of that information, but some of these apps are sharing that, as well as paying attention to what they're watching. I know with YouTube Kids, it's got her watch history, so it can actually use some intelligence to determine what videos to recommend, because if she likes watching a lot of Blippi videos, which he's an obnoxious character, but he's got this, they're going to find more videos similar to his content instead of playing Barney videos. Okay, fine, they're doing some things, but to another extent they're kind of abusing it, as well as putting very inappropriate videos that are and having inappropriate ads in certain spaces that are coded or identified a certain way. Like these apps are billed as educational and include this kind of advertising, and some of the YouTube videos are highly inappropriate.
It's pretty crazy.
It's insane.
I was saying before the show, like it parallels something that happened in the 70s and 80s with regard to the way that advertising was done with cartoons and so forth. And actually there was a lot of restrictions placed on how you could cater to children within the ads. And like, for example, that's why like He-Man and Transformers and all this stuff existed. They basically were infomercials for these toys because they could no longer advertise in such a subversive way as they had been in the past, and force them to innovate with their entertainment with actual content rather than being so aggressive with the advertising that they were doing. And this isn't the exact same thing by any stretch of the imagination, but it's funny how history in a way repeats itself. And it's more pervasive than it was then, because now with the TV, like, eventually the kid's going to have the TV shut off because mom and dad are going to watch the family TV. There was one TV in most households at that time, maybe two. Whereas now, no matter what it is we're doing as family, at least one person tends to have a second screen available to them at that time. especially the younger kids too, because they're like, I don't want to watch, Columbo or whatever.
Even I don't want to watch Columbo.
My wife and I do that. One of us watches the big TV, the other one has a laptop or an iPad watching Netflix to watch what they want to watch. We're spending. It's called it's quality time via proximity, right?
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, that's a whole other podcast that I don't even want to participate in.
Let's not do that.
I mean, if we're focusing solely on the fact that you're monitoring kids within a kid's app, so like one of the things that GamerDad stated was a kid has to watch an advert so that they get a more potent type of medicine to feed an animal to make it better. On the one hand, my immediate reaction is when I watch ads, I don't pay attention. I don't care what the ad is. If it's going to give me a boost, I'll watch the ad, I'll click the text in the top right, and then I'll be done and I get the boost. On the other hand, I'm a 25-year-old man who can understand the differences between an advert that's trying to manipulate me and just something that somebody wants me to look at to then move on from.
Yeah.
A 2-year-old or a 3 or 4 or a 5-year-old doesn't have that capacity. So if that advert is for a candy bar or for a pack of crisps, and they
those
see
in the
that
US, that's potato chips.
If they have a candy bar or a packet of chips, and that advert is just recurring over and over again, that kid's gonna possibly even form an addiction. If it just keeps getting fed those things, is going to be it wants to see more of those adverts. Actually, it might want to go onto the physical thing. It's terrible.
And speaking from experience, kids at that age are highly repetitive to whatever they see. I got my daughter a piggy bank the other day, and now she's asking me for money every day to put a coin in her piggy bank because she has so much fun with those things. There's a video she watches on YouTube, and it's I love it, but I hate it. It's the Baby Shark song. And it's just every time she's near what she calls the iPad her shows, every time she's near it, she's like, Daddy, Baby Shark. And then she wants us to sing it when she's on the changing table and all sorts of stuff. And it's cute, it's fun, it's developmental. She's learning hand movements and stuff like that. But at the same time, if there's a candy bar ad, Daddy candy, no. And then she gets mad at you and you have a 2-year-old throwing a fit. And at the same time, if they're watching these ads, they want to touch the screen if it's something like an iPad, and they're tapping the screen and it could take them to the site. Well 2-year-old, 3-year-olds, they're learning very quick when they watch their parents on these devices how to hit buttons. And if you have your billing set up in a way, they could inadvertently make purchases on your device without you even knowing because a stupid ad popped up. And I think manipulation is very, very clear here, that these audiences are only viewing through repetition, and they're soaking that in from a very limited knowledge base because they're just so young. They haven't experienced it yet, and they don't know any better. They're innocent, and I think I want to say it's rather perverse to have this high frequency of ads in educational software for kids, because I know I can teach my kid my own stuff on her own. That's fine. And in some cases, some digital stuff may aid me in teaching her. Like, I'm teaching her nursery rhymes and songs, and we're singing the same songs we're watching together. And I'm always next to her when she's on there. And we don't watch anything in foreign languages just in case, because I don't know the language. I don't know what's being said. So I don't want her picking up on, because kids at that age can learn other languages, and I don't want her exposed to potentially hearing some things in another language. I don't know what the content is, so I don't want to accidentally involve her in inappropriate content. So it's
what you're saying is you don't want these app developers to be advertising in different languages to your
wow, trying to rope me in a corner. Point being is
don't advertise in subversive ways to children that are not emotionally mature enough to imbibe what you are doing. That's it. And they are doing that. And the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission here in the States, is looking into it. So good luck, FTC. We hope you get it right. And if you don't, Columbo's going to come for a visit because it's one more thing. There's just one more thing. If there's something if you want to talk about something, you can just give us an email over at the TRUgaming.com. The emails, the @signs, the ampersands. I'm not sure what it is. I don't understand. I got a glass eye. Give me a break, okay?
So kind of
very difficult.
So kind of move away from this very horrible Columbo impression.
Have something you want. to talk about. You can do that. You can email us. And we'll
Just
talk
gonna
about
let
it.
him go through with it.
Yeah. So I can't. That's just going to be in my head forever now. When you have adverts,
The halting nature was intentional
Okay.
because I'm trying to end the
Shall I go? Should I just go and just let Jim finish?
show.
Oh, don't forget.
You know,
to
I could do a different voice if it would enable you to move on.
Oh.
It's cool.
Everybody, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast via Spotify, which is relatively new. We're on YouTube, Spreaker.
No, I hear they got this Spreaker. This is
Spreaker?
there's one more.
Oh man.
We're all over the place. I believe I'll have to check. We might even be able to be viewable through different Google Play Store and iTunes. I'd have to double check. But the podcast is out there. It'll be published on YouTube first and then passed around through SoundCloud. So give us a follow. Tell all your friends about us because we all like having friends. And we will be back next week. I put the second and third outro part I just put together because we know the whole thing. So we'll be back next week. I promise. It is the week of Thanksgiving.
Loves you, baby.
Yeah, it is Thanksgiving week, so we'll have something extra special. Maybe even a little bit of chocolate milk served with our buddy Eshnid. For those of you who don't know, he's our chocolate milk fan around the TRUfam. We'll get to know him a little bit better next week.
Oh, Ash is on next week. That's cool. I like
Yeah.
Ash. He's cool.
He's a
dude.
good guy. So
All right, chum.
it's a lot of fun. He makes more fun of himself than we make fun of him. So it should be a very enjoyable stream for Jim.
Oh,
I can
when
see
he
Jim
comes on,
salivating at the fresh meat.
you need to make sure that he abides by his promise to shave half his beard and one eyebrow that he promised during the charity stream.
I think that was coerced.
Make sure he does it.
I think that was coerced. I
But
don't.
it'll still be funny to see.
I don't know if that actually was a real commitment. But Dan, thank you so much. I specifically appreciate the fact that you were not scared to jump over either one of us to jump in and provide conversation. It was very good talking to you. Love the insight, love where you're coming from, and appreciate you being up so late to chat with us.
No problem. Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. Jim, it's fun as always. Enjoy having you around, buddy. And we're going to sign off.
Oh, absolutely. There is just there is one more. It really is one more thing. Good night.
Yes! I didn't even have to ask for it. I love you, Jim. Oh. For those of you who don't know, I used to annoy Jim and our guest by telling them each to say goodnight at the end of the podcast. So with that, GamerDad...
He would.
GamerDad's going to say goodnight. So good night, everybody.
Good night.
I'm going to get my jacket washed.
Da ba dee